Do your hair a favor by checking in online and arriving just in time for your Sport Clips MVP haircut experience while you surround yourself with sports on TV, fresh cut, massaging shampoo, and hot steam towel. Claim your spot today. SportClips.com/check-in.
All right, Louis is with us here giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. There's a lot to get into here, but the Mike Mularkey thing, I mean, it's pretty obvious why they did it. They just couldn't do it last week because they won the game. I mean,
sure.
How do you sell it to your fan base or your players? We just had one of the 4 greatest comebacks in the history of the postseason, and you're fired. So when they said he's going forward, they were really just waiting until they were out of the playoffs, right?
Sure. I mean, look, when you have a new GM and I don't want to say you're stuck with the holdover coach. I've talked about this, and I've talked to other guys who have been in GM positions and or coaches. Nobody really wants to have forced marriages in the NFL. And that's what this was. This is not John Robinson's guy, and I don't even want to put it like that. It's just that when new GMs come in or a new coach comes in, those two people have to be tied at the hip. They have to be a perfect match. They have to have some kind of history or really just some kind of look, they have to have a working relationship that both of them really want to have. And in this situation, really, you're just looking for the opportunity to go ahead and really put your stamp on your program the way you want it. And that's okay. I mean, everybody understands that. But this looks weird, and it's very awkward because of exactly what you said. If they hadn't won the game, this would have taken place a week ago.
So, it really in any job, if you go to an interview, every interviewer is looking for something to hear that says this person fits my job.
Sure.
So now it's the NFL. So while you have some history of some as a former head coach, like Pat Shermer had been a head coach, Josh McDaniels had been a head coach, but how about a guy like a Mike Vrabel who's interviewing, a Matt Patricia who's interviewing? Mm-hmm. What do you look to hear from guys like that? I mean, that says, okay, this guy fits my team, even though I know he's never been a head coach before.
Well, that's a great question. And I think some of the things you have to have certain criteria, no matter who it is, Mike, even if you know the guy, that you have to hear them kind of speak to and kind of meet your standard as far as what you're looking for, right? So first and foremost, like for me, like everyone talks about, well, can he? Do you think he could command a room? And okay, that's great.
Right.
All right, that's fine. That's so bland and so
let's get
vague.
those bland ones out of the way.
One of the things, for me, head coaches have to be great teachers, and not just teachers of the game to the players, but teachers of the coaches themselves. So when you start talking about staff construction, philosophically, how you want your football team to look, how you want it to play, how you want to correct them, how you want to develop them, I want to hear him not just talk about what his area of expertise was, like in Mike's case, defensive line play and linebacker. Tell me about offensive line play. Tell me about what you feel about quarterbacks. Tell me what you feel about the kind of wide receivers you want. Tell me how you want to handle 2-minute situations, 4-minute situations, how you want to handle third down on defense, not just as far as the pass rush is concerned, but what kind of secondary play do you want to have? How do you want to set up your offseason? How do you want to set up your in-season travel? How do you want to set up your meeting schedule? All those kinds of things, like right there, just off of the top of my head, are things that I would want to know.
That's all discussed, in-season travel,
well, you know
how
what?
you want to do your schedule. I mean,
it's interesting. If you really want to find out about a guy, you better discuss it. But quite honestly, as quick as some of these interviews go, I don't know if all that stuff really is discussed. Mm-hmm. Because when you hear teams talking about interviewing,
did you get a temperature of the guy right away?
You know what? Yeah, but I think what I'm saying though is, Trey, there's so much stuff you need to know in order to really find out if a guy fits philosophically with you. I don't know how you do it in 3-4 hours. I don't know how you can interview 2 or 3 head coaching candidates in one day. I just don't. Some of the things I just talked to you about were some of the things Andy Reid used to talk to me about when he said, look, remember this kind of stuff as you start to move down the line and consider being a GM or team president or director of football operations, because these are the kinds of things that really make a difference. Something as little as this. What kind of grass do you want on your practice field?
Wow.
How good are your groundskeepers? You have to take care of your players. The most important commodity in any organization is your players and your players' legs, your players' feet. How are they feeling? What kind of practice field are you putting them on every day? What kind of training staff do you have? What kind of medical staff do you have? How good is your medical staff? How up to date and how advanced is your training staff, your rehab staff? All those kinds of things. Look, now I'm kind of getting into other areas.
Right.
But this is how detailed I believe the whole football operation needs to be. And when you're talking about your head coach, these are all things that have to be important to him too.
Do coaches walk in with a book, walk in with something, or just walk in? What do they come in with?
And some coaches have all that stuff. They do, but in my experience, in my interview experience, what happens is the conversations become so conversational, you don't really have time to take a book out and go, oh, hell, let me reference that right here. Here's my book in this tab right here in off-season programs. This is what it becomes so much one-on-one that next thing you know, 2, 3, 4 hours have gone by and you've never even opened it. Like I went in interviews and had books sitting there going like, I'm ready for whatever you want to talk about, but never even touched it. Because a lot of it, you're right, initially, as you said, you kind of like, people are trying to just get a feel for who you are as a person and whether or not they like you, first and foremost. So to get into a lot of the nuance that we're talking about, I mean, it would take quite a long time, but I think it's probably necessary. I think I would like to have gone through my book. I'd like to see a head coach's book and actually see his yearly plan. But a lot of times you don't even get to that.
Well, this is fascinating as Louis Riddick is here with us, our front office insider. Again, worked in the front office in Philadelphia and in Washington, also played in the NFL and does a great job for us now and it does a deep dive with us on the draft. But let's look into some of these openings now. And let's talk about Tennessee to begin with. It's pretty clear, if you read the tea leaves, this is all about developing the quarterback and Marcus Mariota. Now, we've heard Mike Vrabel's name come up. Vrabel's unbelievable. Great guy, great coach, great linebacker, has the greatest stat line of all time for a linebacker in his career, 12 catches for 12 touchdowns. I mean, never missed. 2 in Super Bowls. But if it's about developing the quarterback, is Vrabel the right guy in Tennessee?
Well, he can be as long as, see, now this is where the interview process has to be very detailed, right? So it's like, all right, well, you're an ex-outside linebacker / defensive end. Who's your offensive coordinator? Who is your quarterback coach? Where did they come from? What is their history and what is their plan from the day they walk in here to the time we kick off the season next September? What is your plan for making Marcus better? And he has to have that laid out. And if you're the owner or you're the GM, you want to hear a very detailed explanation as to how I can make Marcus better.
Right.
Maybe not me directly, but how the guys who I'm going to hire who are going to teach him day in and day out are going to make him better. So, yeah, you would never eliminate someone like that. But obviously it makes their ability to present a clear, concrete plan for developing him even more important. And you have to know when you're hearing the right things from him in order to feel comfortable hiring him. Because there's no question that that's probably marching order number one from ownership to John Robinson is get someone in here who's going to, 1, protect this kid, which Mike Mularkey tried to do, but 2, develop him to his fullest, which obviously they don't feel as though he was being.
So we sit here and hear reports of Matt Patricia going to the Lions, kind of being reunited with Bob Quinn, who was with, they were together in New England. You hear of Josh McDaniels and with the Colts. You heard of Pat Shurmur with Arizona. Now you hear him with the Giants. So if there is a choice involved, which in your mind would be the better spot as a head coach to go to the Giants with an aging quarterback? You'll probably draft one. Or to Arizona, where maybe you'll bring your quarterback in Case Keenum.
Well, I mean, I know it'll sound a little bit biased because I interviewed there, but look, the Giants, it'd be very, very hard to not pick them. I mean, this is a place, look, John Mara is the best. Sitting in that interview room with him and Mr. Tisch and Ernie Accorsi, look, it doesn't get much better than that. Yes, there's a lot of challenges with the football team as far as they have some big contract decisions coming up. They have to figure out what's going on with Eli and have a succession plan for him. They have to take care of the defense and make sure there's some salary cap issues that could come up on that side of the ball too. But it's the Giants, man. It is, and it's
so that comes into play more.
I say this:
there's micro and macro of that team right there.
Sure.
What do I have?
That's right. Which I was just referring to. I mean, there's some work to be done. But there's also the fact that this is an ownership group that is very patient, has been very loyal to the people who they put at the highest positions in their organization, and will give you whatever resources you need in order to be a Super Bowl champion. Great alumni base, great facilities, great market. The market in New York shouldn't scare anybody away. As a matter of fact, people should want to embrace the fact that you're under the bright lights. I think it's a tremendous – look, if I'm picking between the two, and that's no disrespect to the Cardinals – but that's easy for me. That's Giants all day long, regardless of the challenges that roster and how you need to improve it poses. I'd take that all day.
You know, it's interesting as Louis Riddick is here with us. At that point that you just said, you have to embrace that in New York. It gets lost sometimes. I mean, remember, Eli Manning chose that from the beginning.
Sure.
He was drafted by San Diego. He made it clear he didn't want to go there. And people thought that his personality, he's sort of laid back. He actually was perfect for dealing with all that pressure in New York. So the idea now that it may be Pat Shurmur, who is the nephew of the legendary defensive coordinator Fritz Shurmur in the NFL, had a run in Cleveland, and by today's standards, might have been the greatest coach of all time in Cleveland with what he was able to do.
Yep.
Do you think he might be the right fit for the Giants with all the things you're talking about?
Sure. And I know Pat. I worked with him in Philadelphia when he was, I believe Pat was quarterback coach at the time, in 2008. He is a very even keel, very, very well educated in the nuance of football as far as everything that has to do with offensive football. He's a great teacher. He's a great person. I think his personality is such that, in my experience, now I've heard some people say he was very sensitive to the media when he was in Cleveland, and that people were wondering how he would take the New York media when things aren't going well and how they can get after you, whether or not that would be a bad thing for him. I didn't experience that when I was with him. I think his work with Mike Zimmer, his work with Case Keenum, and what he got out of that offense, I think all of that does is bode well for what he will be able to do in New York, without a doubt. He was one of the people who, quite honestly, I would have wanted to interview, because he's a guy who I respect a ton, and I think his work speaks for itself. I think his time in Cleveland, you got to have context there. You got to take that with a grain of salt. There are plenty of coaches right now who are coaching football teams under adverse circumstances who either they don't have personnel or they don't have the support that they need, who are still tremendous coaches. Identifying coaches isn't just about looking at records. It's just not. And for everybody who thinks it does, then you're missing the boat. There's a lot of coaches right now who are coaching on teams that are in the bottom half of the league statistically in whatever category you want to use, who people think aren't good coaches. I guarantee you they are. And there's plenty who are coaching teams that have great statistics who I wouldn't want to touch. So he's going to be fine.
Let's go on the field for a couple of minutes here. Jacksonville going to play New England. I know Jacksonville, their defense, we talk about how great it is, gave up a lot of points to Pittsburgh, no doubt about it. But looking at the matchups against New England, when the one thing you always say you want to hit the quarterback, we know they can hit the quarterback.
Yep.
Looking at their matchup and just kind of a early preview of this game coming up, do they match up extremely well against that New England offense?
Very much so, especially if they can get them into a game where it really becomes, I don't want to say a finesse game, but really where it becomes a passing game, without a doubt. Because they have people up front that are so fast that can get after the quarterback and push the pocket and make Tom Brady's clock speed up even more, as well as anybody in the league. And the number two thing is they have people on the back end. Now, it's funny. You think of Jacksonville and you think of Jalen Ramsey and you think of A.J. Bouye and those guys and you think, well, these guys are always just up on the line playing press. Well, they're not. They play a lot of different stuff, and they actually play a lot of off type of coverage. But with New England, the number one thing you have to do with them and with their receivers is you have to absolutely just kind of smother them at the line of scrimmage. These guys can do that. I mean, that's Jalen's forte. That's AJ's forte. That's not what New England wants. New England wants you to back off, play the finesse game, because they'll just wear you out. They can do that, and I'm interested to see from the very first snap, number two, what do they do with Jalen Ramsey? Do they put him on Gronk like Buffalo put Tre'Davious White on Gronk and frustrated the heck out of him to the point where Gronk tried to then, put his elbow in the back of his neck? That will be a fascinating matchup because Jalen has skills that no one else does.
That's really interesting because we were talking about how their athletic linebackers, maybe Miles, Jack, or
they can do
Smith
it too.
Could do that. But to the thing about the press, we saw that's what the Dolphins did in that Monday night game.
Absolutely.
Now, granted, Gronk was not on the field. We understand that's a different dynamic. But they essentially took the receivers, Cooks, whoever it was. I'm not sure if Hogan was playing in that game. He might have just come back. They basically, by pressing them, they took them out of the game because they couldn't get off their break fast enough.
It's the number one way to shut down a passing game like that wants to utilize movement and quickness. The way you negate that stuff is you don't let them move. You try to slow it down. And, people know this. Bill has actually talked about it in some of the features that they've done on the Patriots about the fact that when teams decide to come down and challenge them at the line, it gives them trouble. It just does, but no one does it. And with Gronk, look, everyone says, well, just try and play him underneath, get in between him and the ball and play basketball. No, you can't. He'll kill you. He's been doing it his whole career. Look at his tape this year. When he gets most frustrated is when people push the envelope as far as what is fair and not fair with him. And by that, I mean this. You bang him and hold him at the line, you may get called for holding.
Right.
And then down the field, when he's trying to push you off, you grab him, you pull him, you may get called for pass interference, but you have to make the refs call it, because if you don't, he's too good, and that's why he just destroys everyone. I'm telling you, that's why Tre'Davious White and him got into it. The play that he hit him afterwards, Tre'Davious was pulling his jersey the whole way, and then intercepted the ball, and Gronk had said, I had enough of this. You're not calling this. The refs weren't calling it.
Oh, we see what you can get away with.
There's no question, Mike, because if you don't, he's going to kill you.
Yeah,
He just is.
I mean, he's an impossible matchup.
That's
so
right.
You have to do
You
something.
have to push the limits and see what they'll call.
Yeah, it's not a hold if they don't call it.
That's right.
That's what Schlereth always
and
doing.
everybody does that in the NFL. Look at offensive linemen do it all the time.
You test referees all the time on how far you can go and what you can get away with.
All you ask for from a ref is be consistent in what you do.
Sure.
Don't let me do it one play and then
That's right.
a ticky-tack the next time. That will be the fascinating matchup
question
in the AFC Championship game. Lewis,
Thanks,
you're on NFL Live later on today?
I sure am.
All right, we'll
I'll
see
be
you there,
brother. All right.
Hey there, I'm a glue stick, so I have one job. I glue kid stuff. So sorry for being jealous of Geico, who does a ton more, like give you 24/7 access to thousands of licensed agents. And Geico has been around for over 75 years and has a 97% customer satisfaction rating. While I've just got mediocre adhesive skills, Geico also has an award-winning mobile app. Uh-oh, arts and crafts time. No eating the glue stick. Miss Lydia!
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
The Romantics. Talking in your sleep. You talk in your sleep?
I don't believe so.
Yeah. I've been told sometimes I ramble.
Really?
Yeah. It's
I snore.
Oh, well,
times.
Who among us doesn't do that?
Oh, there you go.
We are Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, including our next guest, who has become a sensation over the last few days.
Why? Because he went to Notre Dame?
Yeah, also true. Has coached a lot and played for the Minnesota Vikings, but is now the play-by-play man on KFAN, the Vikings, the color analyst, right, sorry. Paul Allen is the play-by-play guy, who's the color analyst on the Vikings radio network. Pete Bercich joins us now on Golic and Wingo. Pete, thanks for being with us. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Just another minus 20 day up here in Minnesota. Gotta love it.
We are looking forward to that in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
We're getting excited. Not as excited, though, as you were, Pete.
Yes.
During the end of the game Sunday, the call, for those that didn't hear it, and we played it a bunch on this show, but we're going to play it for everybody one more time. This was you and Paul Allen calling the game-winning touchdown to Case Keenum to Stefon Diggs.
Three receivers right, Thiel and left. Marshawn Lattimore 12 yards from Adam. Case on a deep drop, steps up in the pocket. He'll fire to the right side, caught by Diggs. Stay up! Oh my God! 30! No! 10! Touchdown! Are you kidding me? It's a Minneapolis miracle! Stefon Diggs and the Minnesota Vikings have walked up on the New Orleans Saints. It's a 61-yard Minneapolis miracle.
Now, to be fair,
yes,
the first thing he said was analytical.
Stay in bounds. So, Pete, first and foremost, take us through that moment. Obviously, we all watched it. I was ready to go and do NFL Primetime with Ryan Clark and Jeff Saturday and Tim Hasselback and talk about how the Vikings defense let them down, and everything changed in the final 10 seconds of that game. What was it like calling that as it was happening?
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, you have to understand the history up here. I mean, I played for 7 years. I was on the field in '98 when we lost to the Falcons in 15-1, and then in 2000 when we lost 41-0. I called the game in 2009 when we had 12 men in the huddle and blew it down in New Orleans. We missed a 24-yard or whatever it was field goal
Blair
against
Walsh, yeah.
Seattle. I was coaching. I was in the booth coaching in 2003 when the Arizona Cardinals scored in the last play of the game and knock us out of the playoffs. I mean, it's 23 years of seeing things go the wrong way. And toward the end of that drive, what I was thinking about was how do you sum this season up in about 30 seconds? Because that's about all you get at the end of the game. Like, what do you say? How do you sum this year up with the ups and the downs and everything else? And then that happened. And that's kind of how that's what faith is, I guess. I mean, you talk about being pushed to the precipice of just giving up. And fans up here, trust me, after 4 Super Bowl losses and everything else, to finally be on that side of the coin, that's how good it felt. That's exactly what it sounds like when you finally win one that way.
Pete, from a ball player's perspective, we had Kyle Rudolph on yesterday, and I'm wondering for you, if you're watching that and one of his teammates, because you were a defensive player, so you would have been on the sideline. I'm wondering, before you made the comment, stay in bounds, as a ball player, were you thinking, because Kyle Rudolph said he was, get out of bounds? As soon as he caught it, he was thinking, get your butt out of bounds right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, what happened was this, they ran that play about 2 or 3 times in that series.
Right.
And Williams, the safety, he saw that play. They knew it was coming, and I think he just got there too soon. And when he gets there too soon, you have to make a split-second decision of whether or not you're going to make a play on the ball. And if you make a play on the ball, you could miss it, and that could happen. And then he just decided to avoid contact to eliminate the penalty, and that's why I yelled "stay in bounds," because there was nobody left. And if he just turned and turned and stays in bounds and goes upfield, then boom, it's a touchdown. So, and Diggs even said the same thing. He said he knew he only had one safety above him. He went up and caught the ball. He saw that body fly by, so he decided to stay in bounds and turn and go. And I don't know, I think about Brian Robinson, who's been with us for a very, very long time, about 10 or 11 seasons, and I'm sure he's sitting there on the bench watching this going, this is it, I'm done, because he's probably going to retire after this season. And then all of a sudden, after that, you look up and you're like, I have one more game. I'm one game away from the Super Bowl. So you talk about a complete 180 in the course of 7 seconds. It's unbelievable. But that's the NFL, and that's what we love. It's the drama.
No question about it. We had that in spades this past weekend. Pete Bercich from KFAN, former Vikings player and coach, now does the color commentary with Paul Allen on KFAN. When we had Kyle on, he said the play call in the huddle was heaven. Did you guys know that was the play call?
They told us that after the game. It was like seventh heaven, a bunch of 7 routes, 3 levels out to the flat. And, no, we didn't know that going into it. But after the game, when we were interviewing players on the sidelines, they brought that up and said that's the name of the play. And it's just one more thing to make it just kind of a cool moment in time,
crazy.
Cool moment in history to be a part of.
Have you ever Notre Dame, I know you got there after the 88 title, because I think you graduated in 94. So I don't know if any of your years there or in the NFL match any kind of a win that begins in this area at all?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's the first walk-off playoff win in the history of the NFL. So no, I mean, we had a couple of great ones. I mean, I've been a part of a lot of big comebacks. In 97, we came back and beat the Giants in a playoff game, and we were down by, I think, 3 scores with about 10 minutes or, left to go. Some crazy. So I've been a part of a couple of them, but never anything like that when you're absolutely convinced yourself that's it. It's over, and then boom, something like that happens. So no, nothing like that.
Well, again, you're right. We've never seen anything like that. That was the first time in a playoff game in NFL history we had a touchdown in the fourth quarter with no time left on the clock. Pete Bercich with us. Who does the color commentary in the Vikings radio network. Paul Allen is the play-by-play guy. And obviously, we've played the call, and I'm sure people have heard it a million times. You just went nuts, which was awesome. But I'm just curious, at any point after that, did Paul come to you and say, dude, you rained my moment? I mean, this was going to be but do you believe in
Al
miracles?
Michaels call.
Yes, this is, and they won't, I don't believe what I just saw. Did he ever say, bro, you killed me there?
No, he hasn't. He's been, that was, no. I mean, I get teased all the time for stepping on touchdown calls and things like that. So you try to stay away from it, but I couldn't help myself on that one. I mean, that was just, what are you going to do? The way he carried it, and the amazing part is that being a part of that and listening and watching PA and those guys do their work, to know that it was exactly a 61-yard play, with the spotter that was in there. He just happened to check the weather forecast for Philadelphia for the following Sunday and knew that it was going to be 48 and drizzly. That's what it said in the paper. And, and to be able to draw from all that in the middle of all that emotion, it's tough to do. It's not an easy thing to do, and he does a great job doing it.
Yeah, he does. And again, looking quickly ahead, it's up to 51 now. Pete, just so you know,
beautiful.
50 and partly cloudy, may get some drizzle. So let's give us a quick thought, right, as I'm sure already as you've come down from this thing and get ready for the next game. A quick synopsis you think of this matchup for the Vikings against this Eagles team.
Well, I think the most important weapon that we're going to bring is Kai Forbath. I mean, you got two solid defenses. Philly's very, very good up front. You've got 2 quarterbacks that if you'd have said we're going to meet in the NFC Championship game on September 11th, everybody would have laughed at you.
Best prop bet ever.
So it's going to be a 15-9, 12-9, I think, type game. It's going to be low. It's going to be low scoring, old school field position. that kind of a game. And I can't wait. It's going to be just the opportunity to be one game away from the Super Bowl and have that in your hometown. I mean, that's something it's never happened before. So hopefully it'll be a season of firsts, and the Vikings can get by Philadelphia this Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening.
Well, you'll see a lot of dog masks out there in Philadelphia. They are loving the fact that they are an underdog one more time as the number 1 seed. Pete, we appreciate you being with us. Thanks for playing along, and I can't wait to hear what happens if it's another game-winning, deciding play in the NFC Championship game that sends you guys to the Super Bowl. Best of luck this weekend, Pete.
Thanks, Pete. Hey, Golic, I'll bite my lip this time and won't step on anything, and I'll be good and quiet.
Dude, I would be stepping all over him as well. You just do your thing. That was awesome.
Be you, Pete. Be
Absolutely.
you.
All right, guys. Thank you.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like I'm on top of the world.
Disclaimer, you will not be transported to the top of the world. In the unlikely event you find yourself at the Arctic Circle, seek shelter from the elements immediately to avoid frostbite and or hypothermia. Geico will not be responsible if you find yourself in a cave or crevasse with a lonely abominable snowman, who in all likelihood will force you to play games including but not limited to Go Fish, Charades, Chinese Checkers, or his personal favorite, Red Rover, send Yeti on over. Geico is not liable for any damages, either physical or emotional.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.